Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a motorcycle racing TV show, Team Chicago Challenge. My email is teamdan45@gmail.com. My website is teamchicago.tv. I'm at Morrie's place in Ringwood, Illinois. We're on Highway 31, south of Richmond, north of Crystal Lake. A beautiful shop that he built here. If you love British bikes, or if you like European bikes, or if you like old bikes, this is a place to stop by. Maybe you want to buy something, maybe you just want to learn about motorcycles, but let me tell you, this place is a wonderful place to stop. Doesn't cost anything to come in, it's like going to a museum, but it is a great museum. A good number of these bikes are for sale, so remember Morrie's place, and it's a great trip. And my email, and I love to hear from my audience, is teamdan45@gmail.com. I can still remember the first time I came to Morrie's place after Ed built this beautiful building on Illinois 31, which is south of Richmond. He built this wonderful looking building for his business, which is British, European, early American motorcycle maintenance, repair, sales. Morrie's place, I remember when it was a Triumph dealer on 173. It was also a BSA dealer. There are nearly 50 to 60 motorcycles in the showroom, and every one of these has a great story. I was lucky to be invited up here to look at these bikes and tell you a little bit about mainly British motorcycles. Look at this beautiful half of a Norton that was mounted on the wall. This came out of the Tony Knapp collection, and all these great signs, memorabilia, paraphernalia. It is pure eye candy coming to Morrie's place. Now, a lot of folks think that Norton Motorcycles was the only motorcycle that had pretty women in their advertising. But this is an ad for the BSA 441 Victor, and even BSA found some lovely British women to put in their advertising. Now, Ed has a couple of his personal bikes from his own collection on the showroom floor. This beautiful 1950 Triumph 650. This is back when Triumph had hydraulic front forks and a rigid tail rear end. Now this is a pre-unit engine, 650 cc's. You can see the suspension is mounted in the rear hub on this 1950 Triumph 650 twin. And as I stated, this is a pre-unit engine where the transmission and the engines are separate. They're connected by the primary side. Now we're looking at a 1930 BSA 500cc single sloper. Now the late great Al Phillips said the reason they call these engines slopers, because Panther also built an engine like this, is that the engine turned over so slowly it would go past the street light every time it fired. But these engines made great torque, and these bikes were used for a sidecar combination. Now let's talk to the owner of Morrie's place, Ed Zender.
My name's Ed Zender. We're at our shop Morrie's Place in Ringwood, Illinois. We specialize in vintage British, American, and European motorcycles. The shop's been in business since the early 1950s. It was started by Morris Gauger back in the day with a BSA dealership, and he evolved to lots of different brands, and Since he's been gone in 1993, we've had the shop, and we moved to this location in 2008.
So in your showroom here, you've got a good number of motorcycles, probably looks like about 50.
At least
A good number of these bikes are for sale, or?
yeah, lots of these bikes are available. Some are just on display, but we have a range of bikes from the 50s through the 70s that are all readily available.
And as part of your business, besides, all right, so tell me about your service. What do you service?
We service vintage motorcycles from 1975, well, 1980 and older. From the teens through the 80s, we service motorcycles. We service a variety of, again, American, British, and European bikes.
So you do work on BMWs?
We do work on
early Harleys too?
Yeah, we do early Harley, early Indian, BMW, Ducati, Norton, Triumph, BSA. Yeah.
So what's parts availability on? I know mostly British bikes, parts are pretty much available going back to at least the mid-60s, correct?
Parts availability from the 60s and newer is most of it's readily available. We have a huge inventory, 15,000 plus part numbers in stock, new and used parts. The availability for some of the odd European bikes is a little less so, and if you go back into the 50s and earlier on British stuff, there's a little less parts availability, but still pretty good availability on lots of it for the more common brands.
Thank you, Ed. As we look in the back to see the service area, he's got 3 or 4 lifts. I know he has 3 or 4 mechanics. His sons work there also, and they can work on British, European, and early American, Harley-Davidson, and Indian motorcycles. It's a lovely shop, a great building, many parts, Morrie's Place, Norton, Ariel, British motorcycles, and a great machine shop. Let me say, the biggest thing I missed when 4 and 6 went out of business is I didn't have access to their machine shop anymore. I was so in debt to 4 and 6 Racing to do all that road racing that I did a few years ago. And talk about museum pieces, look at this beautiful Rickman-Matisse road race chassis with a 650 Triumph engine in it. Now Ed says the majority of the bikes are for sale. I don't know if this is the museum piece or if this may be for sale. But as I mentioned in the past, the Rickman chassis, what they'd call Rickman-Matisse. Matisse was a chassis maker. He worked with Don and Derek Rickman, were motocross racers. So they built chassis for motorcycles for motocross and for road race. This one here has got a 650 or a long barrel, long stroke Triumph engine in it. You can see it has, looks like Cheriani front end, but great brake system, and look at the welding on these frames. This is pure craftsmanship. And this bike may be for sale, and it may be in Ed's collection. On the floor with a modern front end is another Rickman chassis. This one is set up for a BSA 650 unit engine. I remember in the mid-1980s at Groton Raceway when Stevie Patterson, before he became a big star racing, was racing with my son on mini bikes at Groton Raceway with the Wera events. His dad had a Kawasaki 4-cylinder, and he put that engine into a Rickman frame like this, and that's what he raced with. It had better wheels, better brakes, and probably a better handling motorcycle with the Rickman-Matisse chassis. And that was before Stevie Patterson became a national star racing motorcycles. This Rickman-Matisse frame is for sale, and all you need is a nice 650 BSA engine and you'll be ready to go. Here's another Rickman with a Triumph engine, disc brakes, street bike with a full fairing. What a beautiful motorcycle. And like I said, every bike in the shop has got a great story. And you're invited to come up at any time. Just check their website for what time and what days they are open. Another beautiful Rickman motorcycle, Rickman-Matisse. Beautiful welds, nickel-plated frames. It is like walking in any museum coming to Morrie's place. And talking about chassis, I spot this Triumph Hurricane. This motorcycle was designed by Craig Vetter from the Vetter Fairing outfit. This is a 1973. It says the engine is in back. They are working on the engine. This motorcycle in 73 came with the BSA 3-cylinder Rocket 3 engine. The exhaust on the one side was 3 individual pipes. That's what made the bike look so lovely. It looks like it has somewhat of an extended front end. And I don't know if this is the original paint or if this has been painted, but it is beautiful. The standard 1973 front wheel. But this bike could tell many stories. And now we're looking at the original Rocket 3. This is a 1969 Rocket 3 BSA 3-cylinder 750. This has got the Flash Gordon exhaust on it. But this has been painted by a former owner because all of these bikes in 1969 were red. And I should remind you again that I have one of these motorcycles, and it is up to me to take that motor apart and rebuild it and get this bike back on the road. And now we're looking at a very special bike. This is a 1948 Norton International 500cc. You can see the rear suspension on this has got a little bit of a shock absorber for the rear wheel. Lovely paint job. Someone may have road raced this in the past. That's why got the pad on the gas tank. A pre-unit engine, but all Nortons were non-unit engines. You can see the rear suspension again. And this has got a dry primary side, meaning it's got an exposed chain and a dry clutch setup. So this bike was probably used for road racing to have the open primary, drive chain, and clutch. A very special bike. But another collector's item, every British lover should own one of these. This is the BSA Gold Star, the street bike, 500cc, pre-unit construction. This is probably around 60, 61, 62, but a very lovely motorcycle. Maybe one of BSA's most famous motorcycle. these Gold Stars won many, many races back in the late 1950s and into the 1960s. And now we're looking at a Norton Atlas 750. It's a 1966. Got the feather bed frame, which Norton began to use in the 1950s. Considered one of the best handling frames made by the British. It's a pre-unit engine, 750 twin. Nice paint, Norton Atlas. And right next to it is a 1962 650 Norton, basically using the same engine, the feather bed frame, great looking chrome and paint on this bike. And this may be one of the bikes for sale at Morrie's place. Some are part of his collection. Some he's got on consignment for owners. And now we're looking at a 1972 Norton Commando. This bike has the isoelectric chassis, meaning the engine, swing arm, rear wheel were one unit, and they were attached to the frame using rubber mounts to eliminate some of the vibration from the engine. You gotta remember, these twin cylinder engines do make a lot of torque and they do vibrate. So the isoelastic frame was designed to eliminate the vibration for the riders. And now we're looking at the last year for the Norton, brought into the USA. It's an 850 Commando. And this one has an electric start. You can see the electric start mounted there on the back of the engine. This one here shifts on the left. The federal government required motorcycles to have a left foot shift for all motorcycles sold in the USA. I believe starting in 1974, 75. But I'm pretty sure this bike is for sale. It's one of the bikes on the floor. And now we get a chance to look at a couple BSAs. It's a unit construction, 1969, twin carb. You can see the engine is got one case with the engine and the transmission. I believe BSA went to this system in 63, if I'm not mistaken. Fiberglass gas tank, fiberglass side covers. A great looking BSA 650 twin carbs. And right next to it, this red BSA is an 810, I believe. The pre-unit 650 also. A good number of BSAs had chrome gas tanks that were then painted partial. It's a very lovely 62. The engine and the transmission are separate. very clean 62 BSA. Now we're looking at a 1950s Triumph. Now Ed said this is not an original bike. This bike has parts from different motorcycles, different Triumphs with different years, so it can't be considered a proper model year. You can see it's got a rigid tail rear end, got girder front forks, the pre-unit engine, single carburetor, 650. You see the transmission and the engine are separate. And I believe it's got an AMO GP carb. Let's go in a little closer. The carburetor body is separate. Look on the other side, you'll see the remote float bowl. So the gasoline is held separate from the carburetor itself. This may not be a GP carb exactly, but that's what a GP carb were with the remote float bowls. Lovely 650 twin. Also on his floor, and this may be a customer's bike that he's working on, is this 68 or 69 Triumph TR6C, meaning it's got the up pipes, which you could see, single carburetor, solid colored gas tank, unit construction. And the decal on the gas tank says this is a 650. These were long stroke engines. And now we're looking at a 73 Triumph Bonneville. This is when they went to the oil in the frame. The 73 was a vast improvement over the 71 and 72 as far as the layout of the gas tank and the front forks and the engine. But this is the last year with the right side shift for the Triumphs. I believe all Triumphs sold in 74 on had the left side shift. My Silver Jubilee Triumph, which is a 1977, has a left foot shift. And now we're looking at a real classic motorcycle. This is an Al Bloom, the late great, my dear friend Al Bloom, inspired, and Al might have helped his friend put this bike together. The simple gray paint, very clean, solo seat, pillion pad, 2-in-1 up pipe, stainless steel fenders. This is definitely an Al Bloom inspired 500cc twin unit construction. Very clean looking, beautiful Triumph motorcycle. I am so lucky that I have good friends that have the great motorcycle shops, places we can go look at these great bikes, learn about British motorcycles. When I was growing up, it was basically British motorcycles, maybe a couple European motorcycles, and Harley Davidsons were the only thing available. I went with the Triumphs, and I've been happy ever since. I get to race my Triumph. I am very, very lucky. And it's great to come to a shop like Morrie's to learn more about the British motorcycles. For more information on Morrie's Place, it's morriesplacecycle.com. Their email is morriesplc@aol.com, or give them a call at 815-653-7000. I'm sure Ed will answer any question you may have. To contact me, and I love to hear from my audience, it's teamdan45@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of this clip. And remember, you can always search on YouTube with Dan Schmitt Motorcycle Racing for great motorcycle racing action. Dan Schmitt Politics to learn what makes America great. And I highly encourage you to visit the World Motorcycle Museum. They're in Winamac, Indiana, 4 miles south of North Judson. It's a great trip and a great collection of motorcycles, but give them a call first at 574-896-3172. They're right on Indiana 39.